Hello and welcome to Mentora IAS. I am Safir and I am here to take your journey forward with current SAAR. We are back with a new video from the month of January and today we are going to discuss international relations related topics. आज की इस वीडियो में इंटरनेशनल रिलेशंस या IR के टॉपिक्स को कवर करेंगे. कुछ इंपॉर्टेंट इवेंट्स हुए हैं जनवरी 2025 में विच वी मस्ट बी नोइंग एंड सब्सिक्वेंटली इन इवेंट्स को कवर करके आपके कुछ मेजर एस्पेक्ट्स को कवर किया जाएगा बिकॉज कुछ इनके रिलेटेड डेवलपमेंट्स जो हैं वो जुलाई के मंथ में भी देखने को मिले थे. सो द डेवलपमेंट्स ऑफ द मंथ ऑफ जुलाई आर ऑल्सो गोइंग टू बी कवर्ड विद रिस्पेक्ट टू दीज एंड सब्सिक्वेंटली these initial international organizations and international treaties are something that we are going to cover today. Okay, and let me also extend our sincere gratefulness to all of you for showering your love on us. Keep on subscribing, keep on commenting, and at the same time we also encourage you to suggest and at the same time ask your doubts in any of the video that you have been watching. First of all, I would request you all to closely watch the videos, take down your own notes, and at the same time also get our detailed handouts at the social media channel of Telegram. Okay, so our social media group at Telegram is something where you are going to find all the handouts which have been there related to current affairs till date, and all these handouts have been specially curated and they have been made in a manner that is only and only oriented towards prelims. There is a very hard focus of that. Okay, razor sharp, there is no noise, there is no additional information to load you up with. Okay, only those genuine things that you actually can see are going to turn up in prelims or have the probability genuinely to come in prelims are going to be found in this handout, apart from detailed explanations to all the questions that we discuss here. कोई एक दो एक्स्ट्रा प्रैक्टिस क्वेश्चंस भी मिल जाएंगे, so you can also be talking about those questions there. Apart from that, we are active at Facebook and Instagram as well. So we also want you to join our channels and our pages there so that you can always see what exactly is going on, and we will always be there supporting you, guiding you, and at the same time ensuring that you are on the right track. Okay, that is what is the objective. So let us begin with the very first one, that is the International Criminal Court. So International Criminal Court is basically one of the first you can say international bodies that have been established in order to try certain very specific crimes which have been crimes against humanities, but there are certain crimes that we need to understand. Okay, so let us understand the International Criminal Court. So with respect to this particular court, there were three events that have happened in the month of January. The first event is that Ukraine formally became the 125th member of this particular court. Okay, so it basically signed the Rome Statute, which is the founding treaty. Okay, this is the founding treaty of the International Criminal Court. So this was the one which was formally signed by Ukraine, and subsequently it became the 125th party or the 125th member state of this particular you can say agreement. Now apart from that, what happened next was basically an arrest warrant was issued against one of the prisoner operators or prisoner heads of Libya. Okay, he goes by the name of Osama El-Masri Najim. Okay, he basically was the head of the Mitiga prison. Okay, Mitiga prison in Tripoli, and in this particular place, Tripoli is basically in Libya, and here he has been accused of executing, at the same time ordering and getting certain crimes done against the people, okay, who were illegally detained here for prolonged period of time, and these crimes varied from murder, torture, rape, sexual violence between 2015 till the time he was in you can say Libya. Okay, and he was the head of this particular prison, the Mitiga prison. Okay, now the point being that he has been charged that he basically had committed this particular crimes against humanities against the people who did not match the ideology of the you can say the suppressing military forces here. For that matter, the people who were coming from a different religion, that in that particular case it was Christianity. And the third thing apart from these two was that any particular person who was suspected to be a homosexual, they were basically the ones on which this particular wrath was unleashed. Okay, so based upon that, this individual Osama El-Masri Najim was basically the one against whom an arrest warrant was issued. Now on this particular occasion, it was found that he was in Italy. Okay, so he was in Italy in the province of Turin. So Turin is basically a place which is in Italy. Now you may also be knowing, and if not, then you can be knowing this, that if you know the company Fiat, if you know the company Fiat, Fiat is basically a company which is founded in Turin. Okay, Fiat Motors. So in Turin, his last known occasion was shared by the International Criminal Court, and subsequently he was briefly detained by the Italian authorities, but then he was you can say deported back to Libya. Okay, now Libya is not a member state of this particular Rome Statute. Okay, and now he has been deported back to Libya, and now this is something which did not sit well with the International Criminal Court. Okay, now what exactly is the controversy? We have got nothing to do with it. This was the background. Okay, the next thing was that the office of the prosecutor of the International Criminal Court, he basically filed you can say arrest warrant charges against two of the individuals of the Taliban. Okay, the first one was the supreme leader of the Taliban, and the second one was the Chief Justice of the Islamic Emirates of Taliban. Okay, against these two individuals, the arrest warrant, the applications for arresting these were the ones which were issued, were filed on 23rd January 2025, and the charge against them is basically perpetuating or perpetrating the crimes based upon gender. So gender based persecution of women and girls, okay, who did not conform to the ideology of the Talibanis, and subsequently all the other individuals who basically were seen as the allies of such forces. Okay, they are basically the ones who are being you can say tortured, and at the same time crimes against humanities are being done against them. So based upon this, in July 2025, based upon this application, the International Criminal Court formally issued an arrest warrant against the Taliban's Supreme Court, Taliban's Supreme Leader and the Chief Justice of the Islamic Emirates of Afghanistan. Okay, and subsequently they both have this particular arrest warrant issued. Okay, now this particular action was basically the first such case on the systematic gender persecution with respect to the Rome Statute. So gender based violence and gender based persecution is one of the you can say crimes that have been covered under the Rome Statute, and this is basically the first case of its kind which has been instituted, and subsequently once they will be in the custody at that particular time, the trials may begin. Okay, so that is what has been in the news. So that is why I said that there might be a few developments that have taken place later on, so we are covering that here itself. Okay, so now let us understand what exactly is the International Criminal Court. So International Criminal Court is basically an international body, okay, which is a multilateral body, and this basically has been established in order to prosecute, okay, try and prosecute certain individuals who have been accused of committing certain crimes which are related to war, which are related to genocide, which are related to crimes against humanities, and which are related to aggression. Okay, so these are the individuals who must be held accountable for the actions that they have done during such types of turmoil. Okay, so for that this particular ICC was established in 1998 in Rome, Italy. Okay, that is why this particular founding treaty is actually known as the Rome Statute. Okay, because it was the one which was signed in Rome, and it came into force on 1st of July 2002. Okay, so this is basically a permanent international criminal court, and currently it has 125 state parties with the latest entry of Ukraine. So now this is something which becomes one of the questions for prelims examination, that which is the most recent country to join you can say the International Criminal Court. So that would be Ukraine. Please remember this. Okay, now talking about what exactly is the association of the International Criminal Court with respect to the United Nations. So with respect to the United Nations, the International Criminal Court has actually signed a formal agreement. Okay, so this is basically not a part of the UN system. If you do not know what exactly is the part of the you can say the principal bodies of the UN and what exactly is the UN system, you can go back to our previous video which basically had the title of core concept, where we explained what exactly are the principal bodies of the United Nations. Okay, so International Criminal Court is not a part or a principal body of the United Nations system. This is basically the one which is an independent international organization, but yes, it has a treaty concluded with the United Nations, and subsequently International Criminal Court under this particular treaty may be referred a case by the United Nations Security Council. So the United Nations Security Council can refer a case for you can say investigation, trial, and subsequently you can say penalty to the International Criminal Court under Article 13, and this is basically where the cooperation is established. Okay, cooperation between International Criminal Court, that is ICC, and the United Nations Security Council. Okay, so we have to understand this as well, that it is not a UN body. Okay, the UN body that you might get confused with is called as the International Court of Justice. Okay, now International Court of Justice is a principal part, okay, of the United Nations Court of Justice, or ICJ. So towards the end, we are also going to look at what exactly is the you can say the concept related to ICJ and how exactly is it different from ICC, the International Criminal Court. Okay, so now what exactly have been the crimes that have been you can say listed down for which the prosecution can be done by the International Criminal Court, or in simple language, what is the jurisdiction of the ICC, International Criminal Court. So it basically has been given the mandate to try 4 different kinds of crimes. The first one is genocide, the second one is crime against humanity, third one is war crimes, and the fourth one is crime of aggression. Okay, so let me tell you one by one what exactly are these crimes. So when you talk about genocide, okay, so when you are talking about genocide, so this basically covers a few conditions. Okay, targeted killing of the members of a particular nationality, ethnicity, race, faith, or gender. Okay, so targeted killing, that's the first part of genocide. Second one, imposing conditions over a group or community that leads to the restriction of reproductive rights, or for that matter, if it's not about the reproductive rights, it will be limiting the progeny of the future. So you basically are trying to impose certain restrictions on the reproduction which can be carried out by the members of this community, and subsequently in the future they will be automatically having their population shrunk. Okay, the third one is basically called extermination. Okay, the third one is called as extermination. In this particular regard, what you are trying to do is basically you are trying to take away access to food, water, and medicines. Food, water, medicines, shelter. Okay, in that particular manner, if you do any particular thing, that will be called as extermination. And the last one in this is basically the forcible transfer of children from one community to another. So that basically means forcible conversion of children. Okay. So these are basically the 4 things that have been covered under this particular act, which is called as genocide. So now you can see that the dimensions are very much different. It is not just about you can say the killing of a particular group, that is may also be in such situations. Okay, so that is why genocide has been given a wide variation. Okay, the next thing that has been given is basically crimes against humanities. So when you talk about crimes against humanities, now this is something which basically covers a lot of different things. Okay, here you basically have murder, rape, sexual violence, for that matter here you basically have torture, okay, physical and mental injuries. But there is a very important condition that we have to think, and there are 15 such more acts which have been covered under crime against humanity. They have to be performed over civilians. Okay, they are to be performed over civilians. When you talk about the personnel of military, for them there is another convention that is called as the Geneva Convention. So this is basically something which will be performed over the you can say the civilians of a particular region. So this is basically crimes against humanities. Okay, now the next one that we basically have are called as war crimes. Okay, so war crimes basically include intentional bombing, of hospitals, places of worship, to inflict damage to civilian populations. Okay, that's the first one that is basically covered here. Then at the same time, with respect to war crimes, it is also the case that you are going to misuse the weapons by deliberate firing or killing of a soldier or group of soldiers who have surrendered. Okay, so such acts are actually covered under war crimes. And the final one is basically act of aggression, which basically means that military action by one particular you can say state is going to threaten the sovereignty of the other state. Okay, so these are basically the 4 different kinds of you can say crimes that can be prosecuted by the International Criminal Court. Okay, now the point is that who exactly can be held responsible with respect to the International Criminal Court proceedings. So here basically we have to understand that the entire objective is to identify the individual who has been the perpetrator of this entire you can say episode. Okay, so we basically do not want to blame a country, but we would actually want to individually identify the person that particularly was the mastermind of any of such acts. So that is why it is focused upon individual prosecution of persons instead of states or organizations. Okay, so here we are not going to blame any state or organization, we are going to identify the person. That is why you see that the arrest warrants that have been issued against a specific person from that particular organization. If you take the example of Taliban. Okay, then at the same time what happens is that if there is any kind of dispute that is there between 2 different sovereign states, so that is something which is going to be handled by the International Court of Justice. That is the court of arbitration for such things. It is not the International Court of Justice. So here basically we want to identify the individual responsible for this, and that is why the International Criminal Court also has the power to you can say prosecute any incumbent or former head of the state, leader of the government, or for that matter any individual of any rank. Okay, so that is why you might be knowing this, that upon the action of the office of the prosecutor of International Criminal Court, arrest warrants, okay, arrest warrants were issued for Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, Defense Minister, okay, certain officials of Israeli Defense Forces, okay, then at the same time leaders of Hamas. All of them basically have been charged under the actions of genocide, war against humanity, crime against humanity and war crimes, and this count is greater for Israel, okay, because it has been seen repeatedly in many of the coverages that Israel has been deliberately bombing you can say hospitals and the regions in the vicinity of hospitals where patients have been receiving treatment. Maternity wards have been destroyed, and that is why you see that it is basically based upon this that the office of the prosecutor of the International Criminal Court wanted for these particular you can say arrest warrants to be issued. So they were issued long back in 2023 December and January 2024. Okay, so that is basically the thing. So in order to understand this, what do we understand? That even a sitting head of the government can also be prosecuted by them. Okay. Subsequently, the next thing that is to be very importantly understood with respect to International Criminal Court is that it does not sideline any national jurisdiction. Okay, it is something which is based upon the complementary principle. It means that it is there as a supplement, or it is the secondary court after the national courts of a particular country. So in any manner it does not want to compromise or undermine the sovereignty and the sovereign institutions of a particular country. Okay, it only intervenes when the courts of the country are either unable to prosecute that particular individual or are unwilling to prosecute that particular individual. Okay, so that is why the first jurisdiction is always with the court of law of that particular country, and they are only going to come in when the national courts are unable or unwilling to prosecute this particular individual. So that is why it is ensured that the complementarity principle is something which is always upheld. Okay. Now what exactly are the principal organs of the International Criminal Court? So principal organs of the International Criminal Court are the presidency. So the presidency basically has got one president and two vice presidents. Okay, all of them are actually judges. Okay, they are all judges, and they basically are the ones who are elected amongst the judges of the judicial division. Okay, so they basically are the ones who are going to set up the administrative agenda, oversee the entire operation of the International Criminal Court, and subsequently what are the various progress in the investigations, for that matter bringing into custody all of those individuals against whom the arrest warrant has been issued. So that is basically their job. Now the most important division of this is basically the judicial division. So when we talk about the judicial division, it is basically having pre-trial, trial and appeals chamber. Okay, so when you talk about these three, so when we talk about the judicial chamber, so here what happens is that we basically have three different chambers. First one is pre-trial. Okay, so here we basically have three judges per case. Okay, three judges per case are assigned. Okay, and their job is to evaluate the evidence, to approve investigation, leading to trial. Okay, so they are basically the ones who are going to approve the investigation for trial. So they are the first one who are going to look over the evidence that have been given. The second one is basically the trial chamber. So when we talk about the trial chamber, this also has got 3 judges per case. Okay, these also have 3 judges per case, but in this particular regard, this is where you are going to have trial of the case. If that is transferred by the pre-trial chamber to the trial chamber, so they are going to try the case, and subsequently after trying the case, they are going to pronounce the verdict. So they are the ones who are going to pronounce the verdict. Okay, and the last one that we have with respect to this particular body is the appeals chamber. So when we talk about the appeals chamber, so in the appeals chamber we see that this is basically going to have 5 judges per case. Okay, so these are 5 judges per case, and this is basically the appellate authority. So if the verdict is challenged, if this particular verdict is challenged, it can be appealed to this particular authority. Further, at the same time, they also have the power to reinitiate, cancel an existing trial. Okay, they have the power to cancel an existing trial, and at the same time also reinitiate a new trial. Okay, that is the procedure here. Okay, now the point is, who exactly are these judges? Okay, so these are, when you talk about the judges, okay, so judges basically are elected by the assembly of parties. Okay, we'll be reading about this as well, don't worry. Okay, how many judges? There are 18 judges. 18 judges. Okay, elected for the tenure is 9 years, non-renewable. So it basically means once you have been appointed as a judge for the International Criminal Court, you will be appointed for 9 years. You cannot be reappointed. Okay, and amongst these 18 judges, okay, there will be an internal election. There will be an internal election to choose 1 president and 2 vice presidents. Okay, so this is basically what is going to be forming the presidency of this particular organization. Okay, so this is how you see the judges. Okay, now talking about the next one, prosecutor. Now this is the individual who has been given the mandate that you are the one who will be leading the investigation on any charge which have been given under the 4 crimes listed for the Rome Statute. Okay, so this particular individual is actually supported by a staff of 380 different individuals who basically are a group of investigators and then subsequently other prosecutors and human rights activists who basically are there to gather evidence, analyze evidence, and then subsequently make a case for presentation to the judicial division. So the entire investigation and prosecution of the crimes will be done by the office of the prosecutor, and this individual has the burden of proof to prove that any particular individual against whom a case has been instituted, this particular individual is guilty. So this is that particular person, and at the same time the first party to present the case is basically the prosecutor. Okay, so whenever a particular individual comes under the custody of the International Criminal Court, so the office of the prosecutor is basically the one who is first of all going to secure the custody of this particular detained individual, and then at the same time the trial will be opened with the submissions of this particular you can say individual, the office of the prosecutor. So as of now, this prosecutor is if you talk about the prosecutor, so he is actually Karim A.A. Khan. Okay, Karim A.A. Khan from the United Kingdom. Okay, and then finally the fourth body that is there is basically the registry, which you can say provides all the administrative support that is required to the other you can say wings. Okay, so that is basically the thing. Now when you talk about who can actually ICC prosecute, okay, so first of all, anyone who has committed any crime listed under the Rome Statute in the sovereign land or territory of a member state. So all the individuals, all the countries which are a member of the International Criminal Court, in their territory, if any of the crime is committed, okay, regardless of the nationality of the individual committing it, okay, so that particular individual can be prosecuted under ICC. The second one, whenever any particular case is referred to it by the United Nations Security Council. So till date there have been two such cases which have been referred to the you can say to this particular body. The first one is basically the case of Libya. Okay, this was basically under the resolution 1970. Okay, there was a resolution number 1970 based upon which the you can say investigation of Libya was transferred to the International Criminal Court in 2011 by the United Nations Security Council, and based upon that particular investigation itself, you see the current arrest warrant being issued. Okay, then at the same time the next one was basically Darfur, okay, in Sudan. So this was basically the second case with respect to which the United Nations Security Council has actually requested the ICC to take over the investigation. Then the second one is that if the national is accused while in ICC jurisdiction, so if any individual who basically has been you can say any other a party of a national of non-parties, so that particular individual can also be tried if they have been in the ICC zone. Okay, so if there are any individuals who come from the non-party states or non-member states, even if they commit any such crime in the member states, so they can be tried under this particular statute. Okay, that is basically the thing. Now there is a major limitation when you talk about the International Criminal Court. The first one is that it is only going to be trying such cases that basically have been committed after 1st of July 2002. Okay, so any case that or any act of crime that was committed under any of the definitions that have been given of the 4 crimes before this particular date, they cannot be you can say brought into this particular mandate. Okay, so for them we have separate you can say tribunals, ad hoc tribunals, like for Rwanda and Yugoslavia. Okay, so they were actually the ones which were tried by the ad hoc tribunals, but any you can say war crime, genocide, crime against humanity, crime of aggression that was committed after 1st of July 2002, it can be prosecuted under ICC. But then again another limitation comes here, that for any party or any member state joining the International Criminal Court after the establishment in 2002. So that basically means that once the court began functioning in 2002, only the crimes committed 1 year after such extension will be considered. Okay, so just like when you talk about Ukraine, so Ukraine basically is one such country which has joined it on 1st of January 2025. So the war crimes that will be committed in Ukraine after 1st of January 2026, now they are basically the ones which will be prosecuted under the International Criminal Court. Okay, so this is basically something that we need to understand. So with respect to ICC, you can say there will be no retrospective application of the law. No retrospective application. Okay, this is something that we need to understand. Now, what exactly are the key limitations of the International Criminal Court apart from what we have just seen? So the first thing, there is no proper enforcement mechanism and there is no international police force for this particular body. Okay, so the ICC, the International Criminal Court, at the most can issue you can say request to various of the member countries in order to activate their policing mechanism to detain an individual and hand over the custody. This is exactly how you can say the Libyan national you can say Mr. Najim was actually the one who was detained in Italy by the authorities on the request of the International Criminal Court. Now, what transpired after the detention and why he was released on a technicality and then deported back to deported back to Libya was something which was not explained properly. Okay, but that is one of the major limitations, that despite getting the hold of that particular person, they could not, you can say, get the custody secured. Okay, so that is why no police force, and that is why only the member states and their, you can say, policing agencies are the ones who are going to do the job for them. Then at the same time, when you talk about you can say enforcement of the verdicts of this particular court, so that is something which is also going to be limited upon what exactly is the cooperation amongst the member countries. Are they willing to do this or not? Because mostly as of now, if you see, Italy is basically a country which is a member. Okay, so Italy is a member state. Okay, so and the other way around, if you talk about Libya is a non-member. So now what has happened, that an individual against whom an arrest warrant was issued, now that particular individual was in the member state. Okay, now due to whatever technicality, he was deported to Libya, which is a non-member state. So now it is up to Libya if they actually want to respect the request that has been raised by the International Criminal Court or not. And once this particular individual reached Libya, it was assumed that it is as good as gone. Okay, that this particular individual cannot be prosecuted anymore unless this person is detained by Libya. So that is why cooperation is something which is very important for the execution of the orders. Okay, then the next one is basically that it operates on a limited funding issue. Okay, so funding issue is something which has been a perennial problem. And then subsequently the last one is political barriers. Now this has been a major drawback with respect to all multilateral organizations, right from United Nations to International Criminal Court, that the countries which are more powerful, they are basically the ones who try to shield their individuals, and subsequently they do not implement the you can say the principles of the ICC in letter and spirit. Okay, now what exactly are the differences between the International Criminal Court and the International Court of Justice? This is something which is very important. So International Criminal Court is something which is going to have the jurisdictions over individuals. You are going to hold a particular individual accountable for their actions. Okay, and the you can say the scope is something which has been already defined under the founding agreement, that is war crimes, genocide, crime of aggression, crime against humanity. Okay, with respect to the association with United Nations, now this is something which is an independent operating body. When we talk about the International Court of Justice, so International Court of Justice is also you can say one such arbitration body, but this is the one which has the jurisdiction over the states. So the member states or the sovereign countries, when they have a dispute amongst themselves, they go to the International Court of Justice. So here basically what happens is that any kind of border dispute, any kind of treaties, any kind of dispute over any other kind of you can say shared resources, now that is something which can be taken up by the International Court of Justice. Now this is a principal body of the United Nations. So that's the difference. This basically has a agreement with respect to the United Nations. This is a principal organ of the United Nations. Now that is the fundamental difference between ICC and ICJ. Okay, I hope this is something which is clear. Now if anyone has to twist the statement, they will be twisting it right here, that International Criminal Court is a part of the principal bodies of the United Nations organization, and that is where you are going to commit that mistake. So be very, very careful about it. Okay, now what can be confusing is that both the headquarters of the International Court of Justice and International Criminal Court, both of them are in The Hague, Netherlands. Okay, The Hague hosts both of them, but they are two different bodies. Please remember this. Okay, then when you talk about the languages which are on which most of the work is basically done, that is English and French, but apart from that the official languages are English, French, Arabic, Chinese, Spanish and Russian. Okay, so it basically has about 900 professionals employed from 100 different nationalities. So it basically represents a very, very diverse group of individuals working together, and that is why it actually ensures that there is not just diversity of the opinion but also bias-free arbitration and free and fair trial for everyone, either the victims or the you can say the alleged individuals. Okay, now when we talk about the Assembly of State Parties, that is ASP, that was the one which was electing the judges. Okay, so this is basically the decision making body of the International Criminal Court. So this is basically the one where the representatives of all the member states come together, and every such individual has got one vote. Okay, so each member here has got one vote. This is the distinct thing with respect to the United Nations, International Monetary Fund and World Bank. So what do you find here is that it is not going to be dependent upon the economic size or financial contribution of a particular country towards the International Criminal Court. Every such member state is going to have the same treatment. So they are all equal. Okay, so they basically have the function of approving the overall budget of the body, then at the same time electing the judges and prosecutors of the International Criminal Court. Okay, so here the decision is usually by consensus, and if there is no consensus that is being built unanimously, majority voting is basically the one which is taken. Okay, so that is basically the assembly of parties. Now, who are the notable you can say exceptions, the countries which are, you can say, powerful enough but at the same time they are not part of the International Criminal Court? So they are USA, Russia, China, India, Israel, Saudi Arabia and Turkey. Okay, so they are not the members of this particular organization. And why India is not a member? First of all, India is very skeptical about any particular organization that is transcending the sovereignty of the country and its institutions. So that is why the first concern that India raises is basically what exactly is going to be the bearing of the International Criminal Court with respect to the judicial independence of the country. We cannot be having any other court giving or directing orders on such things. Okay, and India being one such country which has always implemented the international laws to its letter and spirit, we want to be very careful while we are treading in such situations. Okay, then at the same time there is always a risk of Western controlled prosecutors. Why? Because you are going to have a lot of countries or member states who basically come from the United Nations Security Council or from the Western world. So there is always you can say an apprehension, not just in India but also in Africa, that there will be a bias towards the you can say the people of other colors. Okay, so that is why impartiality is basically a big question that India raises. The third one is basically what exactly have been the definitions of the various crimes that you have given, because the definitions are so wide ranging that many of the things that are actually done in order to you can say bring the law and order situations under control, that is also going to have a kind of relation with the war crime. So this is something which can make the policing duty and the duty to restore peaceful you can say order in a particular place very difficult, and this is especially with regards to AFSPA. Okay, so that is why we have a reservation with the definitions. And finally, that UN Security Council members can always you can say have their influence over the overall decision making and implementation of those decisions. So that is why India is not a party to the Rome Statute and India is not a member of this. Okay, so remember this as well. Now let us talk about this particular question. Okay, so this question is for you to solve, and now we have all the you can say necessary things that we need to solve this particular question. So I would really appreciate if you give this particular question a try and you give the answer in the comments. You are definitely going to find the details of the detailed explanation of this in this particular video, also in the detailed handout, but do comment what exactly do you think is the answer. With reference to the International Criminal Court, consider the following statements. The founding treaty of ICC is known as the Rome Statute. ICC cannot prosecute crimes against humanity. The crime of aggression falls within the ICC's jurisdiction. How many of the statements given above are correct? So we basically have to understand if these three statements are factually correct or incorrect, and subsequently the ones which are correct, they need to be counted and the answer needs to be ticked. Okay, so I am leaving this particular question to you, that who exactly gives this particular answer. So please do comment and let us know what exactly is the answer based upon your understanding of this entire you can say discussion, and subsequently also with respect to the you can say this and the understanding of the handout that you have. The detailed explanation will be there in the handout, so don't worry, but first comment, then you read that and also understand what exactly are the contours of this entire discussion. Okay, so this is all with respect to the International Criminal Court. So we will be back with more videos so that you can be understanding this in a much better way. So if you have any doubt, please let us know in the comment section. If you like it, please do share it with your other friends. Okay, and subsequently enjoy augmenting your knowledge, building up what exactly is needed for prelim examination, and stop fearing current affairs. Okay, so see you next time. Till then, take care.